Israeli forces told to be ready for a ground incursion into Gaza. This coming days after President Biden's visit to the region, where he met with Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu to discuss the U.S. support in the war, to someone now who was in on those meetings. Foreign policy advisor to Israel's Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, Ophir Falk, joins us now. Mr. Falk, great to see you. Thank you for being here. The release, first, if I could just talk about the release of those two hostages. We should mention, of course, there remain at least 210 other hostages. So this was just a small minority of those who are being held. But is Hamas now using the hostages as kind of a bargaining chips to delay an Israeli incursion into Gaza?
Well, thank you for having me, David. In essence, all countries that genuinely are concerned about civilians and hostages should call for the immediate and unconditional release of these hostages. The only reason that these hostages were released was because of pressure, the pressure that was put on Hamas, and that pressure is just going to increase until the mission is achieved. The mission is to dismantle Hamas, to dismantle this terrible terrorist organization that is just like ISIS. In fact, it's worse than ISIS, not only because they behead people and burn babies, but also because they're backed by a state that is a terrorist state. They're proxies of Iran, and they must be dismantled. Israel will not stand for this terror entity to be on our border.
Now, you mentioned Iran, and finally, President Biden did in his address to our nation on Thursday night mention it not as thoroughly as many people suggested he should have. In your discussions, in the discussions that the president had with the Prime Minister of Israel, did the President of the United States seem to accept the notion that Iran is behind all this?
We appreciate the support of the President Biden, and we appreciate the support, the bipartisan support we are receiving, not only morally but material support from the United States, from our allies in America and our allies in the United Kingdom. We highly appreciate that. And the mission is very clear. Dismantle Hamas. That is very, very clear.
But again, the command and control of Hamas, some people said, is to be found in Tehran, not in Gaza. Do you agree?
Well, clearly Hamas and Hezbollah are proxies of Iran. That's not anything new. That's not new. That is not news. Everybody knows that. Currently, the main mission, or the only mission right now, is to dismantle Hamas. We're fully focused on dismantling Hamas. We are well aware of the other fronts that might happen. We're prepared for that, as President Biden iterated or reiterated. The world is watching. They are watching, and no other party should take advantage of the situation. They simply should not. Don't take advantage of the situation. We are fully prepared.
Do you have evidence that Iran is calling the shots on micromanaging the situation, specifically with regard to the hostages, for example, or indeed with the initial massacre on October 7th?
Well, clearly, I can't get into details right now, operational details or anything of that matter. Okay? But what is clear is that the mission is to dismantle Hamas, and that is what we're going to do. The fact that Iran, or that Hezbollah and Hamas are proxies of Iran, that's a fact. That's a fact. We strongly suggest that nobody else enters this theater of war, but we're fully prepared for that. And we highly appreciate the support we've been receiving from the United States and from the United Kingdom and from all our allies. All civilized countries are fully aware that Hamas needs to be dismantled, because we're at a war right now between civilized countries and these Hamas savages. There's no middle ground here. Either you're with the civilized countries that want to dismantle Hamas, or you're not.
Let's move beyond Hamas to Hezbollah, because we just had our reporter up in the northern part of Israel with the border with Lebanon, and he's suggesting that the battle has already begun, that Hezbollah is fully engaged. Do you agree with that, or is it a little too soon to say that?
Hezbollah will make the greatest mistake of their existence if they become fully engaged with Israel on this in this war. They will be hit like they were never hit before. and Lebanon that houses and harbors Hezbollah will be hit like never before. I think Hezbollah knows this. They're fully aware of this. And I strongly suggest they do not make that mistake. I think they should listen very carefully to the words made by President Biden. Simply don't.
Is it too early to say, though, that they are fully engaged? Because it sounds like you're saying that they have not yet become so.
Well, again, once they become fully engaged, the world will know it, because they'll be struck by Israel in a manner that they've never been struck before. I think Hezbollah knows exactly what we're capable of, and we won't hold back.
Okay.
We're not in another round of violence. This isn't just another round of violence. This is a war that was waged against us on October 7th, okay, by these savages, by these Hamas savages. It's not just another round of violence. This is a full-out war against Hamas to dismantle Hamas. I strongly suggest other parties stay out of this war arena, and those that won't will pay a heavy, heavy, heavy price.
We have to run, but quickly, are civilians in Gaza now able to get through the border into Egypt to avoid any kind of casualties there?
Well, again, we strongly suggest to let civilians, and we demand civilians be let out of harm's way. All civilians should go down south and leave the war zones to go to the safe zone areas or safer zones, and to get out of harm's way. Israel seeks to minimize civilian casualties, while Hamas seeks to maximize them. We target terrorists, and they target our civilians while hiding behind their civilians. They use their civilians as human shields. That mode of operation is not new. That is not new. The only question is, will that be effective now? It cannot be effective. The civilians need to be let out of harm's way. Anybody who can help take in these civilians into the safe zone should do that. We strongly suggest all civilians get out of harm's way while we dismantle Hamas, which is exactly what the IDF is doing right now.
Ophir, Falk, thank you so much for joining us. Best of luck to you, sir. Appreciate it.
Thank you, David. Thank you very much.
Absolutely. Now to Israel.